Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lessons Learned. My name is Vincent Veza. I am an author, the founder of the Hidden Treasure Novels Enterprise, and proud today to introduce to you author Tommy Doonan. Tommy, take it away.
Well, Vincent, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the group today. And I'd like to say welcome to fellow writers and appreciate you giving me a few minutes so I can tell you about my passion for writing and where it came from and what motivates me to write. Tommy Doonan. People ask me about my hometown. My hometown is the United States, all 50 states, actually 49 states. And putting together my memoirs, I've pieced together 24 separate mailing addresses. So in my lifetime, both my parents moving and myself moving, I've lived in a lot of different states, a lot of different cities, and picked up a whole buku list of experiences, different foods, different people I've met in different parts of the country. My education, I like to say, in addition to the book learning and school learning, some of my best education was in the streets and cranking a mimeograph machine. In the movement, we sort of had the catch-all, put theory into practice. So what you're going to be seeing a little bit about today is 60 years worth of social and political ideas through the eyes of a philosopher. And I start being a philosopher because I embrace the intellect of the human race. I believe in free will, that each of us have the ability to make changes in our lives, and we certainly don't have the freedom to affect other people's free will. I embrace discussion, resolution through ideas, sharing ideas. And finally, as a philosopher, I have faith in the tremendous potential of humans to take charge and to make this a better world. So where did it begin? Myself as an author. Well, it began with reading. My writing began with reading. Going back to grade school, reading books, comics, newspapers, encyclopedias, books, The Hardy Boys, Huckleberry Finn, Sunday Funnies, Boys Life magazine. Writing began with me in grade school and a lot of book reading. When I moved on to high school, actually prep school in both Buffalo, New York and in Philadelphia, the reading sort of kicked it up a notch. We're reading the classics of Aristotle and Plato. Also, because I was a member of the debate team, did a lot of summer reading and preparation for debate team topics, reading Time Magazine, Newsweek, US News and World Report, and the daily newspapers in Buffalo and Philadelphia. So in addition to my scholastic studies, because of work on debate and speech, I was probably reading every moment that I was alive and not sleeping and not playing baseball or not climbing trees. So reading was really key to setting me up to be stronger in life for all of my jobs and to become a writer. Early on, I developed an interest in social ideas. I sort of turned my high school years, 1960 to 1965, as the tease years. I remember in 6th and 7th grade at the cathedral in Buffalo, New York, listening to the bishop pastor and his Sunday sermons, talking about morals and about social justice. In high school, again, the speech and debate team, the social issues, some of the topics we debated over those 4 years were things like, should the United Nations control nuclear weapons? Should the death penalty be eliminated? Should boxing be banned? Is television a wasteland? Which is probably still a topic we're listening to today. And another topic we discussed and I researched was, should police powers to question subjects be expanded? The 60s hit. In the 60s, I termed those the can opener decade. It really covered my 7th and 8th grade years, 4 years in high school, and 3 years in college. And without me reading through that list, it's impressive, but it's also kind of tragic that there wasn't a year that didn't go by that there wasn't a major event of consequential importance in the United States that I didn't read about or that I didn't see about on television. And that had an awful lot to do affecting me, my social consciousness, along with tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of others of my generation, which has a lot to do with why I wanted to write and why I write today. I developed an interest in philosophy outside high school or after high school and going into college. Sort of say I was learning to hone the thought process which you might be able to say, I didn't know at the time, I was creating a story arc. Jesuit education from 1965 to 1972. I learned how to question ideas, simply not follow orders, which is certainly a lot of what we do in writing. We're creating, we're questioning, putting ideas out there that maybe people haven't heard of first. What is reality? I think, therefore I am. Perhaps those for me were the early stages of developing a plot for a novel, or the whole thinking process, the dialectics, is maybe that was character development, my building skills to do character development in writing fiction. Continued research for the debate team, by then reading the Atlantic magazine, Nation, the New York Times magazine. Finally, in 1972, I left college for the third and final time without a degree, but that's cool. I left with skills. I left the skills being able to read, think, write, organize, and speak. And the mantra that I developed for myself that week that I left school for the final time in St. Louis was, I'd rather make history than study history. Perhaps today we could say I'd rather write than read, although we know that's not right. We know we need to both read and to write. 10 years in the movement. Starting in 1969 and going through 1979, I was a participant and an organizer in 2 anti-war and socialist organizations in Seattle, St. Louis, and Detroit. The issues that I was part of organizing around were the anti-Vietnam War, women's rights, civil rights, the Black Panthers, as well as the anti-nuclear movement, involved in demonstrations and conferences. Detroit, a lot of my time in Detroit was doing union caucus support work in auto, steel, communication workers, and the Teamsters. Writing activities were part of everything we did in the movement, always issuing position papers, informational flyers, newsletters, news articles. Had the luxury or the work in Detroit of co-founding a nonprofit movement printing and publishing company called Sun Press. Also was for 2 years the circulation manager for a bi-weekly socialist newspaper called Workers' Power. So 10 years in the movement, a lot of that thinking and writing and organizing, and a lot of that building movements for social causes. 79 hits. I joined the corporate world. 79 to 2014, it was suits and ties. Initially, just a chef's coat as a chef for the Hyatt Hotel Corporation. I worked for Hyatt for 11 years, both as a sous chef and as a food and beverage manager. Moved on then 20 years working as a sales and marketing manager for a national liquor and wine producer. Even though I was suit and tie, I didn't follow the norms. I got lucky, I didn't get fired, but I never thought that I thought outside the box. I always thought that there was no box that could hold my thought. So maybe those were the years in which I was honing sort of fiction writing. How can we do things different in the hotel? Or how can we do things different in food and beverage sales? Skills continue to develop, verbal, written skills to be a successful manager, motivator of people, organizing meetings, writing presentations, training modules. Training modules could be sort of like plot structure, developing a model, training module, what the plot structure is going to be. And what sort of carried me through saving these ideas was a thing I developed about 10 years before I retired, a tool in the PC called the Idea Library. Anytime I got an idea that might help our company do something better or train better, I dumped it into the Idea Library, which in the writing world is sort of like writing prompts, personal prompts. You're looking for an idea for a story, an idea for a piece of fiction. I saved ideas that we could use in a sales and marketing ventures. Getting close to retirement, about 8 years prior to retirement, I started writing fiction on my own, little snippets with potentials. Starbucks got an awful lot of coffee money out of me several days a week for a good part of the 8 to 9 years before I retired. Times I go to the mall and simply sit and watch people, describe the actions of people. Traveled a lot with the grandchildren and rarely, if ever, didn't write stories about the travels that we had. And at home, I tended to write best, both very early and very late. That's when my creative juices tended to flow. Wrote personal essays, social on political issues. Wrote about family events, a neat little short story on Thanksgiving at the Doonans, and wrote one on Christmas in my childhood. It's a good exercise, and it was also something to give back to the family. Started writing short fiction, and I wrote, this is pre-retirement, I wrote just because. No reason, no rhyme, just wanted to write just because. I hit retirement. Since 2014, my passion has become writing. I retired, the day I retired, I had a bucket list. There was about 15 items on the bucket list that I wanted to sort of tackle in my free time. As it's turned out, probably 70 to 80% of the time in retirement, I've been either reading or writing, with a progression from poetry was the first things I started writing, and then a little writing tool that I called a centum verba, which is Latin for 100 words. And they were little pieces of not 99, not 101, but 100 words on topics such as a leaf falling, a raindrop exploding, a reflection of light, and how to nail a description with action of an item like that in 100 words. Then wrote essays on social issues, started writing a lot of flash fiction, 1,000 words or less, many of which turned into short stories for me, 2 of which were eventually published. And then short stories I started writing just because, and one right now has pretty close to turned into a novel. So finally, what I've learned in retirement, took a creative class, or creative writing class at a local community college, joined a local writers group called the Writers Night Out, and Vince is part of that group, where we meet once a month to discuss among ourselves things that we need to do as writers, how to edit, how to self-publish, how to get creative, although we're doing it through Zoom now because of the virus, but we're still meeting. Became a member of the North Carolina Writers Network, which is probably one of the strongest writers networks in the United States, with twice annual conferences and some great workshops on writing. Read books on writing skills, subscribed to podcasts. One I'm currently listening to now is called Writer's Ship. Read classic fiction, trying to tackle the top 100. I don't know if I'll ever finish reading the top 100, but they're certainly there. And finally, I write every day. I'm retired now. I write every day. Who do I write for? I write for myself. You got to start with yourself. I'm not being paid to write a book for someone else I don't care about. I'm putting words on the sheet of paper because I care about the words that I'm writing. I write for my children, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, siblings, nieces, nephews, cousins, and their children. Big extended family that have to think that at least some of them someday will want to know, well, what was Grandpa thinking back in the day, or what did what was my uncle thinking about? So I'm putting words on paper for them. And finally, I like to think that I'm writing for anyone that likes to read. I've been writing paranormal, farcical fiction, coming of age, poems, essays on social justice, and observations on everyday life. That's in 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is, a sort of a summary of Tommy Doonan. Still the activist. I like to think that change happens, and keep writing. And thank you for listening, writers, and God bless.
Well, thank you, Tommy. You know, you had so many salient points there, and giving us your background information. This is the introduction of a series of videos that I'm glad to share with our audience, that you will be sharing on lessons that you've learned in life and lessons you've learned as a writer. We hope to be publishing those once a week, and we'll be posting them on the Lessons Learned playlist here at Hidden Treasure Novels. So I want to really thank you, Tommy, for taking the time to be with our audience today and sharing your background. We look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks, and I can't wait till we can meet again in person at the cafe and have a cup of coffee with our fellow writers. In the meantime, it does look like we're in the world of Zoom now. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.